At 3 a.m. on August 7, 1994, a police officer on patrol in rural Washington turned on his windshield wipers to clear a sudden downpour. Instead of water, the blades began smearing a thick, viscous jelly across his windshield, completely obscuring his view of the road. This occurred in Oakville, a quiet logging town in a high-precipitation corridor of the Pacific Northwest. The residents here are accustomed to standard weather patterns, living in a region that averages over 50 inches of rain per year. By daybreak, the evidence of the anomaly was everywhere. A 20-square-mile area was blanketed in translucent, highly viscous blobs, each measuring about half the size of a single grain of rice. This was not a single occurrence. Over the next 3 weeks, this gelatinous precipitation fell 6 separate times, coating the town's roofs and vegetation in a repeating cycle. The sheer volume, the consistency of the material, and the way it targeted a specific municipality separated this event from any recorded meteorological phenomenon. Oakville was facing a localized environmental anomaly. Within 24 hours of exposure, residents began reporting severe physical symptoms. The clinical presentations were identical across dozens of subjects: intense nausea, upper respiratory distress, and acute vertigo so profound it resulted in physical collapse. The material proved lethal to the local animal population. Small wildlife and domestic pets suffered from rapid gastroenteritis and physical failure shortly after contact, with some animals found dead just feet away from the gelatinous masses. Local medical facilities initially diagnosed these cases as standard flu or inner ear infections. However, the epidemiological clustering suggested the town was dealing with a common source exposure to an environmental pathogen rather than a typical viral outbreak. The rain had introduced a pathogen into the town's environment, effectively turning the isolated community of Oakville into an open-air petri dish. As the illness spread, residents began bagging the raw material and delivering it to various medical and state laboratories to determine what was falling from the sky. A local hospital laboratory provided the first startling data point. Under a microscope, the gel appeared to contain eukaryotic structures that resembled human white blood cells. Scientists at the Washington State Department of Ecology later refuted this human connection. They confirmed the cells were organic, but noted a total absence of nuclei, categorizing the structures as prokaryotic, the hallmark of bacterial life. Further isolation by the state public health department identified 2 specific opportunistic pathogens living within the matrix: Pseudomonas fluorescens and Enterobacter cloacae, a bacterium commonly found in the human digestive tract. These findings established a biological reality. The blobs were active transport mechanisms, carrying bacteria capable of triggering the respiratory and gastrointestinal symptoms documented throughout town. One of the first major theories suggested the blobs were blue ice, frozen waste discharged from the lavatory holding tanks of a commercial airline passing overhead. However, FAA regulations quickly dismantled this hypothesis. All commercial aircraft utilize a distinctive blue dye in their waste systems, while the Oakville material was consistently clear. Furthermore, the statistical probability of a plane hitting the same 20-square-mile zone 6 times in 3 weeks is nearly non-existent. A second hypothesis suggested that the blobs were biological viscera from jellyfish. The theory posited that naval bombing runs offshore had vaporized a school of jellyfish, sending their remains into the atmosphere to be incorporated into storm clouds. This also failed to hold up to scientific scrutiny. Jellyfish are multicellular organisms with nucleated cells, which contradicted the laboratory data. Additionally, raw animal tissue emits a characteristic odor of decomposition, yet the blobs were completely odorless. With the meteorological and accidental models systematically eliminated, the search for the origin of the blobs moved away from natural phenomena and toward engineered possibilities. The physical mystery of the blobs remained a cold case until the mid-2020s, when identical gelatinous material began appearing in neighboring municipalities, like Rochester and Mossy Rock. Modern chemical profiling finally identified the substance as polyacrylamide. This is a synthetic water-absorbent polymer used in industrial agriculture as a soil conditioner and moisture retention agent. This solved the raining jelly illusion. Dry polymer crystals used in farming are virtually invisible, but absorb up to 1,000 times their mass in water. During storms, these dormant crystals rapidly swell into clear jello-like blobs, creating the appearance they fell with the rain. While the polymer hydration model explains the physical origin of the blobs, it creates a significant discrepancy regarding the 1994 medical records. Pure, commercial-grade polyacrylamide is chemically inert and non-toxic. The presence of the polymer alone cannot explain the respiratory illness and animal mortality that defined the Oakville event. One possibility is environmental bioaccumulation. In this scenario, the absorbent polymers acted as a landscape-wide sponge, concentrating stagnant pathogens or toxic runoff that was then aerosolized and released upon sudden hydration during the 1994 storms. A more concerning theory proposes the gel was a carrier system. Under this model, the synthetic polymer was used as a micro-encapsulation matrix to test the dispersal and survival of pathogens in a rural environment. This is supported by reports of unmarked military aircraft, black helicopters and tactical bombers, operating at low altitudes over Oakville immediately prior to the anomalous storms. Any chance of confirming these theories was lost when the physical samples mysteriously vanished from the state health department's containment laboratory. When the lead microbiologist reported the loss, he was met with explicit managerial instructions to not ask questions. The subsequent erasure of all official testing records ensures the true nature of the 1994 matrix remains a historical mystery. It leaves behind a case where advanced polymer chemistry and biological pathogens intersected, with the results buried by a complete administrative failure.